Dear colleagues, before I begin, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the presentation to the discussion of precisely such aspects when comparing reflections at the intersection of popular paths, the subject areas of today's event and the accompanying set of new technological capabilities are relevant, in my opinion, as never before.
Motivation. The prerequisite for comprehensive research was the target setting of the project, analysis and synthesis of coordination methods for decentralized management of heterogeneous groupings of autonomous agents, of the completed program of the Presidium of the Russian Academy of Sciences number 730. Theory and technologies of multi-level decentralized group management in conflict and cooperation.
In the episode under consideration, the context of the extensive problems of hybrid intelligence covers interest with close attention to the concept of common sense. This notion will refer in the broadest sense to a certain set of initial information that each of the interacting parties can, should know or assume, and the ability to use it if necessary. For example, everyone or people of a certain culture or age group have such general knowledge as something used to be.
And of course, the most obvious way to gain the desired common sense is to study it or experience it firsthand. But in everyday communication, this is something that people can or should not talk about, because it is assumed that the interlocutor knows this or makes appropriate assumptions. So, in accordance with regulations, the participants of today's section are offered the main provisions, regular paper number 163. Investigation of new Prosumer peer-to-peer decisions into energy community integration. The purpose of the report is to present new opportunities for building a virtual semantic environment of potential actors through the integration of hybrid intelligence components, mainly focused on monitoring the activity and interaction of individual components of the common sense knowledge base. The key orientation of the research in this case is precisely the conditions for the development of peer-to-peer decisions into energy community integration. In the introduction, we will also allow ourselves a retrospective distance back to the time of the early 70s of the last century, with the mention of the work that was one of the first to forestall the concept of prosumer. Quoting as close to the text as possible taken out of context, a couple of excerpts from the announcement of the publication. According to the archive of the newspaper of those years, it is impossible not to be surprised at the insight of our predecessors that took place. Theme: take today the executive as dropout. Among the pages and pages of quotation that practically restores the acceptability of footnotes is relevant and timely. In a world teeming with satellites, they argue a business executive who still worries about hardware, the actual product he sells, is pathetically outdated, a victim of the incredible acceleration of information that ignores the need for a new concern for humanity. Take Today the Executive as Dropout is a slightly misleading title. The authors did not just make up another accusation against big business or a community of people, but rather unfolded the entire panorama of global evolution before and after the launch of Sputnik in 1957. They conclude that nature in the traditional sense was a garbage can, but now all people are responsible for developing a broader and more responsive nature, a difficult if exciting task for everyone to be a willing participant in creating diversity without losing identity. Efficiency is no longer effective in an electric society that requires informal participation and involvement as a basis for any operation whatever, the book says. And yet, who exactly is new prosumer? as far as possible without going into the intricacies of the development of the new Prosumer topic under consideration over all these years. The core line of the study can be indicated by a comprehensive modeling of both the motives and the resources provision of new actors. So, as you know, intention is the desired result of the operation of interacting actors. This is one of the key concepts of various kinds of modern operations and a vital element that promotes both the initiative of subordinates and cooperation, collaboration, etc., between the subjects of a formed or emerging team in joint operations. The report provides a brief overview from the perspective of the development of the proactive control and the study of the applicability of the data environment analysis technology. In particular, in one of the survey papers, the relevant respondents were asked to indicate which stakeholders they are inclined to cooperate with and for what purposes, out of a total of 5 types of relationships: knowledge sharing, self-promotion, access to finance, access to human resources, and access to material resources. For example, the answers for cooperatives are shown in the figure, while answers for other legal forms can be found in additional materials. In general, the most popular stakeholder group with which Prosumer initiatives were associated were communities, collectives, and/or cooperatives for the purpose of knowledge exchange, followed by interaction with the citizens' households for self-promotion, and finally contacts with civil society as well as organizations and other prosumers, but again with the purpose of knowledge sharing.
It should be especially noted that the basic technology used by the extended team of authors is the Data Envelopment Analysis Toolkit. The research takes place in a team under the scientific supervision of Professor Vladimir Krivonoshko. The illustration shows the appearance of a classroom with appropriate equipment and original software. DIA technology is a non-parametric method of evaluating production operations and economic units by construction of production frontiers. The approach is focused on the empirical measurement of production efficiency in the interests of decision makers. The tool is also used for comparative analysis in operations management, when a set of indicators is selected to evaluate the performance of production and service operations. As defined in the DIA methodology, efficient units form a best practice frontier. Subsequently, the efficiency of the other decision-making units can be determined by measuring the deviation from this frontier.
Subject area. The considered set of tasks of the software architecture is mainly focused on monitoring activity for the formation of extended smart contracts in relation to selected aspects of possible implementation, for example, delegation of authority, multi-stage decision-making, situative and situational center, governance, civil defense, integrated information and notification system post-cyber attacks, modeling of anthropogenic hazards, environmental monitoring, habitat monitoring, as well as the integration components of the ambient intelligence and their effective application, including but not limited to the use of the following basic categories in solving problems: correct problems, compromise deviation, decision-making stability, digital rights management, smart contracts, performance management, people capability maturity model integration, lean CMMI processing areas, and others. So, the revision of beliefs in the process of their adaptation, taking into account new information, is the most advantageous area of application of abductive inference applied to the development of proactive control by substantiating the integration components of hybrid intelligence. The main problem of belief revision, including for the non-trivial peer peer-to-peer decisions into energy community integration conditions under consideration is that the new information may not correspond to the previous belief network, and the result of inclusion may not be contradictory. The process of updating the belief network can be carried out with the help of abductive inference when an explanation of the observation is found, and its integration will not lead to inconsistency. In this possible case, the illustration shows conditional examples of cross-sections of a multidimensional set of production capabilities for one input and one output indicator. The points that1 and that2 represent the starting positions of the several regions, and the points A and B represent the intended goals for some regions. The vectors of directions A and B, defined above as gradients of the potential function, are in a sense ideal directions of motion and define equipotential surfaces. Considering that in reality the direction of movement will deviate from these ideal directions, with the help of experts, cones of possible direction C1 for goal A and C2 for goal B are determined. The cones themselves are directed towards increasing output indicators, and the vertices of the cones will be located at the points of achievable goals A and B. Cones C and C2 are recessive cones. Such cones can be set, for example, using pairwise comparisons between model indicators. Implementation, information and analytical support, and support for the intuition of the leaders, support and coordination of the group as a whole. Various applications in the field of hybrid intelligence based on big data in the aggregate of many popular and growing functional tasks also include, for example, fault diagnosis, revision of beliefs, and automated planning. In these cases, abductive inference seems to be one of the most applicable means for automatic detection of potential inconsistencies in the complex system under consideration. So, in principle, it is possible to take into account theoretical information of a categorical nature, for example, in which some abnormal situations are associated with their consequences. At the same time, it is quite possible to use the abductive output to obtain sets of malfunctions, which may be the cause of all kinds of problems. The need to use hybrid intelligence technologies in the aspect of activity monitoring for selective interaction is due to the use of the words estimated probability for the terms used by analysts when creating analytical reports to convey value judgments about the occurrence of an expected event. Undoubtedly, the thoughts expressed only reveal a vast layer of work in various related industries in relation to a wide range of issues in the order energy economics and energy markets. The thesis of the report contains several considerations of the details of only some of them. Thus, this report is also an invitation to further discussion, including, if necessary, a permanent Moscow seminar, but in conclusion, a specific personal household example of the pressing concerns of housing and communal services. Some additional sources on the proposed topic of using data envelopment analysis technology are given on this slide. Thank you so much for your attention.
My English is not good enough, so you can address your questions by email. Also, I am ready to take part in the discussion if anyone will help me in communication.